Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In my last video, I showed you this website that was sent to me by a client, and the website was done with ChatGPT. So the client wanted me to recreate this on WordPress, and I decided that it would be a good time to show you how I use WordPress and Elementor to create custom designs for websites. Now, in the last video, we had set up our WordPress site. We had also installed Elementor plugin. So in this video, we are going to carry on from where I left off in the last video. If you haven't seen the last video, please check the channel. The video should be there. So the first thing I would like to do is go back to the website that we are using as reference, or the AI designed website in this case. And then we just take a look at the layout, and then also just see what is going on around the website so that we can have an idea of how to attack it. Now, some things are going to be static, especially on the homepage, something like the hero section. The brief about us section is also going to be static as well. Services, I believe that should be static, and then we move on to the portfolio side. Now, this is going to be dynamic content that the client can update regularly. Okay, so we are going to factor that in when we are creating the final website design. And also the testimonials also has to be dynamic so that the client can manage the testimonials themselves. And there you have it. So I'm going to start by setting up Elementor Pro. I have an Elementor Pro version that I don't use for client jobs. I basically use it for development. And then once the website is moved to the client server, I then charge them to pay for an Elementor license, which is a yearly license. So I'm going to go ahead and install that, and then we'll pick up the video from there. So now I have copied and pasted the Elementor Pro folder into my plugins directory. So I'm just going to go into plugins and then click on activate Elementor Pro. Now that that is done, we can then go into pages. We need to create a couple of pages, and now that I'm here, I'm going to delete some default pages that are added to the website. So for example, sample page. I'm also going to take the opportunity to go into posts and then delete this sample post as well. Now we can head back into pages and then go back to the website. We have about, portfolio, categories, and services. So I'm going to create all 4 pages quickly. Now that we have all the pages created, let's head back to the WordPress dashboard, and you can see we have about, category, portfolio, and services page. I should just add a contact page and then publish that. Okay, and that should be it. So we have about, category, contact, portfolio, and services page. So the first thing the next thing I would like to do is to set up the menu. To do that, we go into appearance and then menus. And then I'm going to create a menu called main menu. Hit create. And then now I can select my menus. So I'm going to add about, category, contact, portfolio, and services. And then I'm just going to rearrange them to a way that I think is good. So about, and then maybe portfolio comes next, services, and then you have category and contact. Now I'm going to save the menu. As you can see here, main menu has been updated. So we currently have our menu set up. One last thing I would like to do is go into pages and create one more page, which is going to be the home page. And then hit publish. Now we have all our pages created. The next step is to go into settings, and then under reading, we want to, by default, WordPress sets our homepage display to your latest post, and you can see that right here. So if I open up in a new tab, you can see that this is a post display page, and it's referred to as archives. Currently, we don't have any post on it. Otherwise, those posts will be displayed here. So I'm going to set this to a static page and then pick the home page that we created earlier. Now that that is saved, if I go back to my home page now, you can see it now says home. And that is because it's using the home page as the display page for our landing page of the website. So I'm going to head back to the dashboard, and then we can start to make some improvements to our website. So the first thing I'm going to tackle is the navbar. Okay, so I'm heading back to dashboard now, and then this is going to be the first use case for Elementor. So we go into Elementor tab, and then under editor we click on templates. Now inside of the templates, we want to click on add a new template. And then Elementor gives you the option to specify where you want your templates to be displayed. So I'm going to select the type of template as a header template, and I'm going to give it a name of site template, site header, and then create templates. So Elementor has blocks where you can pick different header blocks that you can start to work with. But in this case, since I'm showing you how to use Elementor to build completely from scratch, we are just going to close this tab. And then let's skip all of these notifications. And we are on the site header templates editor. So I'm going to set up containers that would house our navigation items. And to do that, I'll click on the plus sign. And I'm going to choose the flexbox option, and I'm going to set my container direction to column. All right, now we have a section above that we can work with. So the next step is to add containers to this section, and then start to add elements into those containers. So think about it like so. If you take a look at this header, the navbar area runs end to end, okay? And then within it, you have like a box. Just think about it as boxes, right? So you have a box in between. On this side, you have one box that houses the logo. And then on this other side, you have another box that houses the menu. So let's think about it that way and then start to implement that design pattern. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on add elements, and then drag a container into the section that we just created. Now, let's assume that this container is only going to house our logo, so we need another container for our menus. Let me go back to add elements and then drag another container outside of it. So now we have two containers stacked on top of each other. But our use case, we want them stacked side by side. So what we do is we select the wrapping container, and then we go to layout, and under layout, we set the direction to horizontal. So that put both containers side by side. The next thing I want to do is add our site logo. So for now, I don't have a logo to work with. The client hasn't sent that yet. So I'm just going to add a heading to it. And all I did was under elements, there are lots of elements that you can choose from in Elementor to build up your website. You have things like heading, images, videos, Google Maps, spacers, icons, and a lot. And then you also have your loop grid. We'll get into this in a future video. And then you also have WordPress menu. In this case, I just dragged in a header, and I'm going to give the header a name. And we do that by selecting the element, and then we have the content option. We have the option to specify the content of the element. We also have the option to style the element, then change things like the color, the font size, the font style, the alignment of the font as well. And then we also have an advanced tab where we used to change things like margin, padding, the width of the element, and then how we want to align the element within the container. We also have things like position, and then the great part is we also have motion effects. We have other effects that we can implement on the element, which includes motion effects. We can transform it, we can add backgrounds, borders, so many things that you can do within the elements in order to make it customized to suit your design. So what I'm going to do is change this heading text to, for now, change it to the title of the business for now, pending when I get the logo. And I will probably just leave it as a H2 tag. And then the next thing is we need to style it. Okay, so from here, first let me change the color to black. This will change eventually, but for now let me just change the color to black so that you can see what we are working with. Let me close this. Now that we have our logo on the first container, it's time to add our navigation menu that we created earlier. So I'm going to drag WordPress menu, and then that appears here. I'm going to change a couple of things. First things first, I'm going to align it to the end. Okay, and I did that by clicking on the alignment and setting it to the end so that it flushes with the end of the container. Now, as I move my mouse over the menu, you can see that pointer directly below the menu items. If we go back to our design, we don't have anything like that. So I need to get rid of that. And to do that, I'll select the menu, make sure that I have the menu selected. And then under style, I'm going to change the pointer width. This is what controls the pointer underneath. I'm going to change it to 0. So now when I move my mouse over, the pointer has disappeared. One more thing, all the text are set to uppercase. So we also need to emulate that. So by selecting the menu item, I'm going to go into style, and under main menu where you have typography, I'm going to click on this edit icon, and then we'll transform it to uppercase. Now that the transformation is done, we need to make some adjustment to the width of the containers, or both containers inside, so that we can have more room for our menu items. To do that, I simply find the first container and I reduce the size. Okay. Next thing is I also want to make the font lighter. So I'm going to change the font weight from 600 to around 400. And then I'm going to specify the font width. Now, for me to do that, I can either use pixels or ems. I normally prefer to use ems in my design. It makes it easier because 1 em, for example, represents 16 pixels on most devices. So if I change this to 0.7, you can see how tiny it becomes. So that way I know how to properly create that hierarchy between text, headers, paragraphs, and all that. So for now, I'm going to leave this at 0.87. And that is looking good. The next step is to add a button. According to our design, there should be a book now button. So the next step is to add that book now button to this section of our navigation. So I'm going to go back to add elements and then scroll all the way down until I find button, the button element. Yeah, this is it. And then I'll drag it and put it inside of the container that we have to our right. Now, just like we did for the layout, this particular container is stacked column. So we want to change it to row. So we select the entire column and then we change the direction to row. Now that we've changed the direction to row, we want to realign the entire elements within this container to flush with the right-hand side. To do that, we go into layout within this container, okay? Not the wrapping container, within the container that we are working with that contains the menus and the button. We select that container, and then under justify content, we set it to the end. So that pushes everything to the end of the container. And one more thing I want to do is to ensure that all elements are aligned to the center. Now that that is done, our menus are beginning to take shape, which is good. It doesn't look anything like this now, but we'll pick it up from there. Our menus is beginning to take shape, and let's now create some settings that would make it easier for us to style our design further. Like I said, the client didn't supply anything apart from this ChatGPT design that you're currently taking a look at. So how do I get the color of this? It's quite simple, actually. All I have to do is go to the element on my browser, right click on it and click on inspect. Now, I just want to make sure, and I have to be under inspector. Okay, I'm currently using Firefox. First, I need to make sure that I have the correct elements selected. So with it selected, you can see those markers around the elements. That is the first thing I want to see. Then next, I will just scroll down under the rules section that shows the CSS styling for this particular element and look for anything related to color. So here we have a class called border gold, and that is what is currently used here. So mere looking at it, you can see that the border and the text have the same color. So it means that I'm working with the right set of colors. So I'm going to copy this color and then we would use it for our design. Now that I have the color that I need, what I like to do is set up global settings so that I can reuse this color anywhere that I deem fit. So to do that, you go to the Elementor icon at the top left corner, you click on it and then you click on site settings. Now under site settings, we have different design systems that we can customize. This includes global colors, the font, the theme style, and other settings related to your website. All your designs are consistent across the website. Let's go into global colors. Okay, our primary color is currently set to this pale blue. I'm going to change that to black. Our accent color, I'm going to change to the brand color. All I did was copy the hex code from the brand color by going to inspect element and then seeing the primary color, which is this primary gold, and then just select it, copy, head back to the website, and then change our accent color to the brand gold color. And then maybe for the text color, since we're going to work on a black background, I'm just going to set the text color to white. That we can make adjustment to as we continue to build the website. Now that I'm done with the global colors, I can save changes and then go back. And then this is a good opportunity to change the global font. So how do we find out what font is being used by the website? This is quite easy. And just like we did for color, all you have to do is go back to the website, look at one of the fonts, right click on it and choose inspect. Now that pops up and you can see we have the correct element selected. And all we have to do is go under rules. This might be different from Google Chrome. I'm currently using Firefox. Go under rules and then just scroll down until you say something like font family. Oh, there it is. So we have font family and it's called Playfair Display. Now this is a Google font and we are just going to set that up right now. Now that we know the name of the fonts, it's easier to set it up. So under global fonts, we have a primary and then we have a secondary. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it to my secondary tab. So you click on the edit icon and then you see the font family section. And all we have to do is search for Playfair. And then we can see the font here, Playfair Display. I'm going to give it a default size of 1 ems and that should be it for now. For our primary font, same thing, we'll go back to the website, right click on a text and then choose inspect elements. And then we can see that we are currently selecting the P tag, the paragraph tag. And all we have to do is just scroll down and look for the font family. And then we can see that it is currently set to Inter. So we head back to our website under the site settings. Remember, we are changing the global font. So for primary, would select the font family and search for Inter and select that font as well. And for now, we'll just set it to 1 ems. So we have successfully saved the two global variables that we want, which is color and font. And then now we can head back to the editor by clicking on the X sign. And let me show you how easy this is. Now, once we click on the site title that we created earlier and click on this little icon beside typography under styles, we can just choose the the secondary font, and then that automatically changes our font. So for the title, I will want to increase this size. So let's go back to M's and say 2 M's and then give it a font weight of 800, for example. So that looks good. The website is taking shape. I understand where we currently are. Don't worry, you will see much more improvement. The next thing I want to do is ensure that we are working on a dark slate, right? Because as you can tell, our menus have disappeared. Why? Because we set the text color in our global settings to white. So to do that, we go back into our global settings, site settings, and then we go to background. And then here we can change the entire background of the website to a dark color. So looking at this, we have black. So let's head back to the site and then change it to black. Now we save changes. Any page that we create from here on would just take the background color of black, so it's easier for us to see what we are doing, and then we can continue working on the website. So if I head back over here and just try to mimic this logo as closely as I can, all I will do is change the text color to white. So let's head back to our editing screen, select the site title, under style, change the text color to white so that we can see exactly what we are working with. So we are almost done with the header. A few more things to do. I'm going to select the entire container, and then I would align everything to the center so that our site title drops and is properly aligned to the center with the menus and the call to action button. For the call to action button, which is going to be the last part of the menu, I'm going to select it, and then it's time to make some changes to the button. So with the button selected, we go into style, and then we want to change the color to black, but for now let's change it to transparent, and I'll tell you why in a bit. So we change the color, we'll make it transparent. The next thing is we want to change the text color. All we have to do is click on under text color, click on the global setting, and then pick the accent color. Next, we want to change the border color as well. So under border type, we'll select solid, and all the values are currently linked together. That is exactly what we want. We want borders on the top, the right, the bottom, and the left. So we set that to 1 pixel. And then for the border color, we go to default and then set it to the accent color, which is our brand color. So if I click out of this now, you see that we are closely resembling our design right here. So a few more things to change, and then we would perfectly match this design. So let's head back. The first thing you want to do is select the button, go into contents, and then change the text on that button to book now. Also, we can type this in title case and then style it with the style tab. Go into typography, click on the edit icon. Let's change this to the font weight to 400 and then transform it to uppercase. And then for our EMs, for the font size, we change it to EMs from pixels, and then we can change this to 0.87. So to preview what we've done, we can just click on this section to unselect every element and look back and look at the design. Once you are happy with it, you can compare it with what was shared. All you have to do now is click on publish, and Elementor will ask you, where do you want to display these templates? In this case, we are going to add a condition, and the default condition is fine, which is we want to display it on the entire site. Okay. This is our navbar, is a consistent component across the entire website. So yes, entire site is fine. And then now we can save and close. So let's head back to the WordPress dashboard. You click on the Elementor logo and then click on exit to WordPress. Now that we are back on the WordPress dashboard, we can click on our home icon, and then see what our navbar looks like. So for now, let's head back to the WordPress dashboard and then start to work on our homepage so that the website can have a bit of life added to it. So the first thing we're going to do is go into pages and then scroll until we find our homepage, right? Which is now tagged as the front page because we set it up in under settings and reading. So on our homepage, we click on edits and then click on edit with Elementor. Now we are on the edit screen for our homepage, and you can tell by seeing the title home on the page that we are currently editing. So to get rid of this home, I'm going to go under page settings, which is on the top, is the third icon top left, and then scroll down to hide title and then check it in order to hide the title. We don't want the title to be displayed. Now we are going to add a container. Now with the container added, we are going to go under layouts and then make some changes. Let's take a look at our reference website. As you can tell, the hero section is a full screen banner with our content centered in between. So what I'm going to do is head back to Elementor at the website we are working on. I'm going to select the main wrapping container and set the minimum height to VH, and VH stands for viewport height. So VH stands for the entire viewport height. That is the height of your screen and the viewport area of the browser as it is. So I'm going to select the container and then change the unit of measurement from pixels to VH, which is viewport height, and I'm going to set it to 100, which is 100% of the screen. Now that we have that set up, I'm going to add a container, another container within this. This is where our content is going to live. To make it easier to see what you're working on, I think it's time to add some images. So I'm going to click on the surrounding container. Or rather, I'm going to click on the wrapper container and then go to style. Under style, I'm going to go under background, click on this, the classic icon, and then we can set a background image. So I'll click to choose an image. And then I'm going to drag some images that I downloaded earlier into the page. These are images that were extracted from the reference website. So I'm going to select the image and then hit select. And it's time to realign this image so that it covers the hero section. So under the options for adjusting the background image, first we are going to change position to center. That brings the model up. We are going to change the repeat option to no repeat so that the background is not repeated. And then we are going to change the display style to cover, or rather display size to cover. Now that we have that, if we go back to our reference site, you can see that there's some sort of dark gradients or dark translucent gradient on top of the image. So let's try to implement that. To make that work, we go under style, still with the wrapper container selected. We go into background overlay and then we select classic, but this time around we are going to just choose a color rather than uploading another image. Now we've picked a black color with an opacity of 0.5. With that, we can just hit publish so that our changes are saved. And you can see that we are making progress quite similar to what we have here. So the next thing I want to do is move this container that is within our hero container, move it to be in the exact center of the hero area. Now to do that, I'm going to select the outermost container and then go into layout and set justify content to center. Now that we have that, it's time to start adding elements to our website. So I'm going to drag a heading tag. On the design, we have this boldly written L model Nigeria. So I'm going to start with L model. Change the HTML tag to H1 and then go under style and make sure that it is centered. The next thing I'm going to do is change our font family from the primary font family to the secondary, which matches our Playfair display font. With that selected, I'm going to go back into typography, and then now we need to increase the font size. So I'm going to change the unit of measurement from pixels to ems. And let's start with, say, 6 ems. Okay, I think we need to go a bit higher. Let's go with 10 ems. That looks good. And then I'm going to make it extra bold and then change the color to white. Okay. Maybe let's go with 9, thereabout. So what I'm going to do, this is not good for SEO, but for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. So I'm going to duplicate my title and then change this to Nigeria, because what we have here is L model Nigeria. Now with that selected, if you take a look at the design, the Nigeria is written as an outline, and we will try to emulate that as well. So with the Nigeria text selected, let's go into typography. First, let's change the text color to the accent color and then go into typography and then change the text stroke to 1 pixel. Now that we have the text stroke set as 1 pixel, we can then change the stroke color to our accent color while going back to our accent color and then turning down the opacity all the way down to 0. So now we've matched what we currently have in the design. I feel like this font is slightly smaller than what I'm working with. So I'm going to go back to the title and then change it from 9 to 8. Okay, that looks better. And then I'm going to change the one for Nigeria as well to 8. Awesome. So the next thing is to add this paragraph, which is Premier Talent Agency. So I'm just going to select the character, copy it, come over here, go back to add element, and I'm still going to drag a heading element just underneath it, and then change the text to the text that we copied. I'm also going to adjust the style, but before I do that, I'm going to change the HTML tag from a heading tag to a paragraph tag so that our text is semantically correct. Then under styles, I'm going to change the typography to, I'm going to make some adjustments. So first, I'm going to change the color to white because that is what we have here. I'm also going to increase the font size a bit and then reduce the font weight. So let's go back to typography, change our unit of measurements to ems and give it like a 1.2 em. Change the font weight to 400. And I think that should be it for now. So if we go back to our design, we can see that the container wrapping our paragraph is very small. And that is exactly what we also try to emulate. So I'm going to go back to the text and then go into advanced. First, we need to center the text. So now that we are here under style, just change the alignment to center. And then under advanced, we want to change the width to a custom width. I'm going to leave it as percentage, and then I'm just going to eyeball it until I get to a width that I think I'm comfortable with. Now that that is set up, we'll then change the self alignment to center, and then this centers our text as well. So let me just increase this slightly. And then we need to make some style changes. So I'm going to go into style, and then under typography, I'm going to change the line height to let me first change the unit of measurement to ems, and then change the line height to about 1.5. Okay. So our website is beginning to take shape. I'm super excited. And we still have a couple of things to do. So let's go back to our reference. And you can see we have 2 call to action buttons. So let's head back to the website and then try to make that happen. Now, since we have 2 call to action buttons side by side, this is a good case to use a container. We are going to use a container to make sure that we get that arrangement correctly. So I'm going to drag a container under our paragraph. Okay. And then within this paragraph, I'm going to put 2 buttons. So I'm going to just click. You can click to add elements, and then go back to add elements, or let's work on 1 button first so that it is easier to replicate the entire design. Okay. So for this button is supposed to be a view portfolio button. So let's click and change the title to taking a look at the button, we don't have any border radius. So we need to get rid of the border radius and then change the color of the button. So under style, we can first change the text color to our primary color. And then under border radius, all we have to do is just click and make sure that it is set to 0. And then we can adjust the padding to make the button slightly bigger because this button looks quite big. So to do that, we select the button and then we want to unlink all the values. Now, what happens if we don't unlink all the values is that the button, the padding is applied to the top, the right, the bottom, and the left all together. And that is not what we want. So we want to unlink the values and then adjust it manually. So now we can reduce the bottom padding to 1 which is equivalent to 16 pixels. And then we can adjust that of the top as well to 1 and let's say the side to 2 and then the left hand side to 2 as well. So that looks a lot better. Now that we have our button properly styled, we can duplicate this button, which is one of the patterns that I use when building websites. I like to duplicate elements. That way you can easily transfer, the styles that you've applied to the previous element into the new element rather than trying to match the new element with a style that has been done before. So I will duplicate this button and then head back to our reference. And this has a white border and a white text. So let's do that. With the button selected, let's change the button text to become a model. And then we go into style. First, we need to change the background color. We need to get rid of it. So I'm going to select the background color, turn the opacity all the way down. Then I'm going to change the text color to white. And then we need to add a border because as you can see here, there's a white border around the button. So under the border type, we change it to solid. And then we just click on it to set it to a 1 pixel border. You can set it to a 2 pixel border, which is also good, just depending on your preference. Now the buttons are stacked on top of each other, but what we want is the buttons to be side by side. So let's head back to the container. And then from here, make sure that you're under layout, and then we can set the direction to horizontal. The next thing is to move the button to the center of the hero section. And to do that, we justify the content to center. And then now we can hit publish and then hit the preview button. And we can see our website beginning to take shape, right? Quite similar to what was given to us. And then I'm going to make a few more changes to the header so that everything can blend properly. And then we'll move on to other sections of the video. So to make further adjustments to the header, because if you take a look at our reference, the header is fixed, right? It doesn't move with the page. But what we currently have, our header moves with the page. So this is the next change that we need to make. To make that happen, we go back to our Elementor editor. The great thing about working with Elementor is that you can switch between different templates as you are working. So in this case, I'm currently working on the home page, as you can tell. From here, I can click and switch to the site header page in order to make changes to the site header. And at the same time, I can just put my mouse over the site header and click on site header to edit it, which is what I just did. So now we've switched from working on the home page to working on the site header page. Now that we're on the site header page, we want to make sure that the top parts, which is our navigation bar, is sticky, just like we have with the reference, right? It's sticky. It doesn't move with the page as you scroll on the page. So the first thing we're going to do is select the entire wrapping container, because it's the entire container that we want to be sticky. Then under our Elementor properties, we go to advanced, and then under advanced, we want to go to motion effects. Under motion effects, we want to go under the sticky option and then change it from none to top, and then click on publish. Now, if we head back to our design, you can see that our header is now sticky. But there's one more thing that we need to do. If you take a look at this design, the hero section starts from the exact top of the browser, which is what we are going to try and implement as well. So we head back and click on edit page to leave working on the site header and then start to work on the hero section. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to select my hero section, go into advanced, and then we need to set the margin to a negative value, our margin top to a negative value. So to do that, I'm going to first unlink all the values, and then now we can then adjust our top value for the hero section to a negative value until it barely covers the navigation area. Now that that is done, we can hit publish to publish our changes, and then head over to our site header, because we need to add one more change, which is this light white border that you can see here. So now that we are here, all I'm going to do is select it, select the navbar area, go into style, and then under select the border option, and then we change the border type to solid. And since we are only applying the border to the bottom, we want to uncheck the link values together and then only make the bottom 1 pixel. Okay, and then we can then change the border color to white. But if we leave it like this, the white becomes too bright, so we need to reduce the opacity just down to a decent area, so that the white just barely shows through. So now we can hit publish and then go back to our home page, and we can see the light white border. So if I click on preview changes one more time, you can see that we are now closely matching what was shared with us by the client. So that's it for now for this video. In the next video, we will take care of the About Us section still on the home page, and then we would also focus on our services section, and I will teach you how to create this nice hook effect where your text hooks while you scroll, and then it unhooks when the container has passed. Those are the two sections that we'll cover in the next video. So if you are new to the channel, please subscribe, share the video with your friends, and I will catch you in the next video.